TGIF family, happy Friday. Welcome to the Thursday Night Roundup, where we're talking all things Ring of Honor and, of course, TNA. And there's plenty to talk about, as this show is all about compound interest.
Hello, my name is Danny Luna, and you are watching Women's Wrestling Talk.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Women's Wrestling Talk, the #1 women's wrestling network on the planet.
TGIF family, happy Friday. Welcome to another edition of the Thursday Night Roundup as part of Women's Wrestling Talk, the #1 women's wrestling network on the planet. I am Gerard Bonner, a.k.a. your professor, Teflon G, GB. I probably should get another nickname to throw in there. I just don't know what it is yet. I would almost ask for you guys to come up with one, but I don't know. The folks over at Southern Honor, somebody started calling me Grilled Bacon for GB and didn't exactly hit the same, but that's what they like. Go figure. Not Grilled Bacon. I am your professor, and I am not alone. Let me just say this. Must-see TV is anytime me and this person are together, because you just never know what she is going to say. She's the boss lady. TK's in the building. The real TK. How are you, ma'am?
What she's going to say. What do I say that's like crazy, though?
Oh, well, what they need to know is, like I said, we need to have a whole show all about and call it bad analogies, because I'm still thinking about Wednesday morning in the NXT post show and all of the places we went. So,
oh, okay. Yeah. See, I don't even remember that. I just be saying.
See, this is what I'm saying. This is exact. So if you don't know what I mean, go back and watch the NXT post show from Wednesday, and you'll get exactly what I'm saying. And TK forgot, so she might need to go back and laugh at herself. I don't know. How are you? And hey, Beulah.
Yeah, I'm good. She is an official lapdog now. I'm good. I'm good. Girl.
Very good. Very good. Well, we've got a lot to jump into. Of course, we're covering the final episode of Impact before the Against All Odds pay-per-view, which is today, a few hours from now. But we'll kick things off with the show that actually aired right before that. And that, of course, is Ring of Honor episode 68. 7 matches strong, and this one's coming from Palm Springs, California. And we even got a guest commentator at the end of the show. We'll get into that in a little bit, but there was quite a bit happening here, including 2 proving ground matches and a massive trios match where, if you watched our show last week, I guess they said, well, if you thought last week was big, hold my beer. I got something for you. So we'll get into all of that. But the show started off with a proving ground match involving Billy Starks. And as we regularly tell you, these proving ground matches have a purpose. If the challenger lasts at least 10 minutes or is able to get a win, then they will secure a future title shot against said champion. So Billy Starks kicks off this episode of Ring of Honor, and she takes on Sandra Moon. And Sandra Moon was actually part of the women's television tournament in round 1. Ironically, she took on Red Velvet, who seems to be the #1 contender for the World Television Championship. Billy Starks gets the win. What were your thoughts on this match?
I guess it's the same thing, kind of what we were talking about NXT as kind of a through line. I feel like which is good. You're letting people get their reps and stuff like that, and the anticipation. I'm not one for patience and anticipation. I'm grown into that, but I'm not one for that. So I think we all can agree that Red Velvet, it's setting up for Red Velvet and Billy Starks, and hopefully a title change. Not like hopefully because I want Billy Starks to lose it, but just the progression of the story. So I feel like it's a good setup, but then it's also like great for Sandra. I'm happy, all the flowers, all the things, but we knew that she wasn't gonna pass the 10 minutes. So then that's where it is on one level, it's a little bit of a letdown because you know that you already know what's going to happen. So storyline wise, you're just like, okay, let's get to it. Wrestling wise, it was a great match.
Yes, definitely a great match wrestling wise. And it showed why Sandra Moon was in the tournament to begin with. She had some really strong strikes on this one and really challenged Billy Starks. Again, I think, and we mentioned this last week about Ring of Honor, but it's worth mentioning again. I would love to see fewer and fewer proving ground matches. Like, I'd love to see people work to a proving grounds match so that when we see it, it's special. We literally get 1 to 2 proving ground matches a week. And so when you get something that common and the results are pretty much the same, it does kind of not allow you to be as invested as probably you should, because the whole idea is, will this person actually defeat the champion? And so in this particular case, that didn't happen. Ironically, this episode is bookended by proving ground matches, which means we'll have a proving ground match to talk about at the end of this episode. But once again, Billy Starks getting the win and avoiding the Swanton Bomb, which is her normal finisher, in favor of a submission hold. And so we'll see what happens. We didn't see anything from Red Velvet here, but Red Velvet does show up a little bit later in the show. From there, we get a tag team match, and it's interesting. Jacoby Watts and Nick Camarado found themselves on Dynamite this week, which is also interesting. So again, kind of this needle is moving. And speaking of Dynamite, we've seen on Dynamite and Collision quite a bit. STP, that's Shane Taylor Promotions. Shane Taylor, a former Ring of Honor television champion. And so he and Lee Moriarty back in Ring of Honor for this match involving Jacoby Watts and Nick Camarado. And we talk a lot about stories. Here's a space where there's definitely stories being told, even if people are losing. What were your thoughts on this one?
I mean, Jacoby and Nick, we talked about this last week. It's again another interesting, the ROH with the slow burn, because you know that this. Well, I don't know, maybe what your thoughts are that, but I feel like this gimmick is going to, eventually hit its crescendo and crash and burn, meaning, does he no longer, like, the faith is no longer a thing, and, you're doing something totally different, opposing. So I'm kind of curious of what that looks like. Or it might be a long-term thing. Like, do you think this gimmick is, there's some longevity in it, like some years?
I don't know about years. I think a lot of it will depend on if this tag team gets a win. If they get a win, then Jacoby Watts is able to say, hey, listen, you followed my ways and this turned into success for you. It has not resulted in a win so far. But interestingly enough, we actually got to hear Jacoby Watts on the mic during the match. I don't know if you want to call it a sermon, a sermonette, a wild random testimony or what, but it was Jacoby Watts basically saying, praise be to he, and he is me. I found that hilarious. And again, it's just, I know you love, okay, let's just get to it, but we're actually getting, I think, some fun gems out of this one.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm appreciating this. Say that again?
It's also something that Kanye would say too.
Oh, absolutely. Which again, you as you mentioned that, it makes you wonder how much of an inspiration he might actually be for this particular character that's being brought to light here. Jacoby Watts actually got in the ring this time, but it was primarily to try to get pinfalls and things like that. Once again, Nick Camarado ending up trying to do all the work, but Shane Taylor and Lee Moriarty are on something else right now. A big win there for STP, and the problems continue for Nick Camarado and Jacoby Watts, which I just thought was hilarious.
It's so funny. Nick Camarado looks like, if you watch like any of those documentaries where they have the, Georgetown, they have the people who follow the followers, like from like the 70s and the 80s and the 90s. That's what he looks like. He legitimately looks like one of the followers. Now that I look at him, I'm like, oh, he looks like what is it called? know what I'm talking about. I
Like
forgot
when
what
they
he's
have
called.
these cults and these.
Yes. He looks
Yeah.
like one of the followers from the cults from like the
Yeah.
early 80s. Like
Mhm.
it's quite interesting.
He really does. Just that faraway stare, that willingness to
Mhm.
seemingly trust anybody, and that desire to believe in something, which I think is very, very interesting. Once again, a win for STP. Now, this was interesting to me because we ended up with a backstage interview, which they were really by themselves. There was no one doing the interview. Not that they need someone to do an interview, but Johnny TV and Taya Valkyrie. And usually when we see them backstage, it's usually Johnny doing most of the talking. But this time it was Taya Valkyrie. And this one was of great interest to me as she started talking about, what her career looks like and the like. And then she mentioned the one person she wants to call out, that being Queen Aminata. She referenced their match in the TV tournament that happened where Aminata got the win. I believe that was right around the quarterfinals or semifinals. And then from there, she asserted herself by saying Queen Aminata isn't a real queen. She's not the queen of anything. She just named herself the queen, and then Taya went on to talk about all that she has earned in her career. Really, it seems like setting up for a potential match between these two, where in my mind, I'm going, okay, this is actually really good to kind of fill this lengthy space we have between now and the upcoming pay-per-view Death Before Dishonor, which happened in about 6 weeks' time. What did you think of Taya Valkyrie's statements about Queen Aminata and potentially a match between these two?
It's funny because it was a great promo, and definitely Taya inserting herself, or whoever the writers are inserting herself into the storyline. Because for at one point it felt like she was like off somewhere else, and now she's kind of being brought back into the ROH women's storyline. So like that's great, but if we're not going to see her, and I definitely do think that I mean I never want to see people like lose their titles. Like I think Athena has been a really great champion, but I Queen Aminati has great potential, but Taya has been a champion, and I know what that would look like, and it would be quite entertaining. She also has those quips, and she can do different. She could do both heel and babyface. Like she could do so much if given the opportunity. So maybe they're doing a swerve on us, where it's just kind of like we think that Queen Aminata is the next up for Athena's championship, but maybe the play now is Taya, and to get to Athena, she goes through Queen Aminata.
Yeah, I think there's some real possibilities in terms of what this can do, and I think this ends up serving as a very legitimate challenge for Queen Aminata. When you just look at, again, the experience and the career of Taya Valkyrie, what
Mhm.
she has already done. Many found out about her from Lucha to all that she did over in TNA,
Mhm.
to what she's done in AAA and all of the spaces. She is a very serious threat for any championship she chooses to go after.
Mhm.
And, when she decides to assert herself and apply herself, she's a real problem. So I think this has potential to be a great, great match and potential feud for Queen Aminata, as both of them seem to have their eye on a championship. And who knows, this could either be kind of fodder for Queen Aminata or result in potentially a triple threat for Athena, which I think would be very, very challenging for Athena if we get to that at Death Before Dishonor. But very interesting for sure, because it's rare that anybody calls out Queen Aminata,
Mhm.
especially with all that she's had going on. So shout out to Taya Valkyrie, and we will certainly watch and see how this goes, how slow of a burn it is, or if we end up getting this match in the next couple of weeks. From that, we move to one of the more competitive matches on this card. Viva Van, who of course has been on Ring of Honor several times before, in a match against Red Velvet. And kind of coming into this, we certainly know Red Velvet has been on a trajectory for the women's TV championship. Viva Van has had some great showings, hasn't had a ton of wins on Ring of Honor, but certainly what she's done in New Japan and several other places makes her a viable opponent for Red Velvet. And this was quite the entertaining match. What did you think of this one?
Oh my gosh, Viva Van, like somebody please sign her. She has multiple, I think I think she might have 4 or 5 titles at the moment, like
Yeah,
now
yeah.
in play. So anytime, and she's doing a really great job social media wise. Like you can't
Mhm.
ignore her. Which
Yeah.
is question. I'm really wondering, like, why isn't she getting signed?
Hmm.
Because she has the look, she has like everything kind of going for her. It was a great matchup, but again, and I know we talked about this last week too, where it's just kind of like we know some of these people aren't signed, and there are people who are not signed to promotions, but they're still champions. But it's not common, so it's
Mhm.
kind of one of those things where I wouldn't even say necessarily. I would classify it Viva as enhancement talent, but when we see this matchup, we're like, this is going to be a great wrestling match. But storyline wise, you know, we're not going to see much because we don't know when we're going to see her again. That type of thing. But great match nonetheless. And I guess it's like we were saying before, the slow burn to, the trajectory of Red Velvet going up against Billy Starks.
Yeah, a very entertaining match, and I think a real challenge for Red Velvet. I think anytime Red Velvet ends up in the ring against someone who is stronger than her or can match experience with her, it becomes a very interesting match to watch. With that said, Red Velvet gets the win, but at the end, she began to make it very, very clear what her plans are, and her plans certainly are the television championship, and Billy Starks saying that this match is for you, and I'm coming for the TV championship. So it'll be interesting to see, again, what else needs to happen between now and Death Before Dishonor, which, again, is about 6 weeks from now. From there, let's get into this Four Corners Survival Trios match. So last week, there was a triangle trios match. It involved 3 trios teams. That's 9 men. So apparently that wasn't enough. This week, we get a 4-corner survival trios match involving Lance Archer and the Righteous, Top Flight and Action Andretti, the Infantry and Dalton Castle, and Dark Order. Now, last week's match saw Dark Order get a win, and so you throw another team in there, you wonder if they would be considered the favorites. Now, I wondered coming into this what a 4-corner survival trios match would mean. Do you have to, is it an elimination style match since you're talking survival? Is it something where you've got to hit all 4 corners? No, it was just really a trios match involving 4 teams of trios, first fall to a finish. Full match, lots of people involved, lots of moving parts. It ends with Top Flight and Action Andretti getting the win. What were your thoughts on this 4-corner survival trios match? That sigh said a lot. Mhm. And the pregnant
So,
pause. This is great.
so I mean, I get why. I think the reason why they're doing trios is to offer talent more TV time. So I
Mhm.
get that. But I think, as we discussed before, it's just not hitting. There's
Mhm.
something about when promotions attempt like the trios, um, the storylines just don't quite um, do it for me. I
Mhm.
mean, if there's somebody else in the chat, let us know when you watch this back, like how you feel. But it's not. It just really seems like I want to give everybody a chance. This is what I would do if I have a talented roster with a limited amount of time, and I want to give people a chance.
Mhm.
I would create the trios, because if you have tag team, there's only so many tag teams that you could have in play, kind of going up and down the ladder. So this is a great thing to create for folks. But then on top of that, it's just a really difficult for me to see kind of like the story behind it.
I think the other thing that's probably making it difficult is we don't ever see the trios champions on Ring of Honor. At least, whether we like the proving ground concept or not, the champions have been present,
Mhm.
be that the women's champion, the women's TV champion, or the tag team champions. That is one of the interesting things to me, is when you don't have your champions present and there's really not much mention of that, then it kind of asks the question, with 4 teams in this, what are we fighting for?
Mhm.
That I think is the real challenge here. And since Dark Order won the triple trios match or triangle trios match last week, perhaps they end up being top contenders, but now Top Flight and Action Andretti win this one. So do we even have contenders? Do we have rankings or anything like that to be able to look at who our top contenders are for these trios championships? We don't know. So without that, it ends up just being a match with good wrestling. That's,
Mhm.
pretty much it. Last week, Dalton Castle was involved in the World TV title match. This week, he's in a trios match. Not a real rhyme or reason behind it. And so I think
Mhm.
that's part of the challenge that can happen. And I don't know if Ring of Honor itself needs to specifically say, we're going to bring you great wrestling matches and tell stories. I don't
Mhm.
know how they should properly convey that so that our expectations aren't dashed by what we see sometimes. But
Mhm.
this match, as full as it was, definitely felt like, let's give these 12 guys a shot,
Yeah.
and some time, as opposed to it meaning something. And I think at the end of the day, any TV time that any talent or match gets should lead to something, and it should
Right.
be, clear enough for us to want to follow. And I think that might have been the challenge with this particular presentation. No knock to what these 12 men did. But yeah, that was kind of it. So from one trios match, we go to another trios match. This time on the women's side, as it was Marina Shafir, Diamante, and the debuting Alex Windsor battling Layla Hirsch, Lady Frost, and Abaddon. This is interesting for a few reasons. One, there's been a lot of talk about Marina Shafir, and she's had some backstage vignettes. Last week, she had a match where she was very, very dominant. We hadn't seen Diamante in a while, so it's good to see her back. And this was the
Mhm.
debut for Alex Windsor. On the other side, you've got Layla Hirsch, who, again, we haven't seen a lot of. She's primarily been connected to Rachel Ellering. Lady Frost, who is always, great to watch. And then Abaddon, who, quite frankly, you just never know what you're going to get with her. She's just always very scary. That's for sure. What were your thoughts on this women's trios match?
I mean, we've seen Layla, Lady Frost, and Abaddon together before in previous trios match, so it it makes sense. But again, it kind of goes to, I don't know. I was about to say, like, the previous trios match that we talked about. If you were to separate these matches and put it on up on YouTube, which they probably do, you wouldn't be questioning. I wouldn't be questioning as much as far as the storyline, because I'm just watching that match.
Right.
So I think it gets into this thing that when you're watching the show in its entirety and you're consistently watching it from week to week, you're expecting the storyline. So it'd be interesting just to find out the fake TK's perspective on how he wants the viewer to ingest this content for
Mhm.
ROH, because it's more like, we're just giving you great wrestlers and great wrestling, then we're looking at the product a little bit different.
Mhm.
But then on the flip side, the frustrating side, like, Lady Frost has been around for a long period of time. Like, she deserves to be in a storyline somewhere. Same thing with Leela Hirsch and Abaddon. Marina Shafir, she had her promo last week. So now she's like you were saying, now she's in a trios match. So, like, where what happens next? Like, how does it connect with the promo? So, and then Diamante, I mean, as well, really great talent, but haven't really seen much as far as that. So again, I don't know if the trios part is just kind of creating a space for people to wrestle, because there's nothing worse if you come to wrestle and now you're sitting at catering week in and week out.
Mhm.
So given the
Right.
opportunity to do a trios versus nothing at all, like let's do the trios. But I'd be curious what the fake TK, like the intent behind some of these storylines are.
I thought about you when I watched this match because I thought to myself, we just completely busted TK's theory. And that theory is when you see someone who's not signed to the company, oh, well, it's pretty safe they're going to lose, or the squad they're on will lose. In
Mhm.
this case, Alex Windsor, who's making her Ring of Honor debut, wins the match by getting a pin over Layla Hirsch, who's only had 3 losses in her entire Ring of Honor career. This was a very big move, and it says that at least there's a plan for Alex Windsor, which
Mhm.
it kind of comes as a surprise, not given her track record, all that she did in Rev Pro, and shout out to, again, the commentary team who always does a great job of filling in those blanks. But I
Mhm.
think since there had been so much attention given to Marina Shafir over these last few weeks, one would have imagined that perhaps she would have gotten the pinfall or that there would have been more emphasis placed on her. Instead, Alex Windsor by far was the star of this match, the star of the show, and lands a pin over one of the women who rarely ever loses in Ring of Honor. What do you think that meant and what it means for Alex Windsor in Ring of Honor?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I I feel like they should take a play on what we said last week. Like we'd see more consistent people who are not necessarily signed to ROH or AEW. If they're coming on as one-offs, they should instead of a one-off be there for an extended period of time. If
Mhm.
Alex gets this pin, and she did, and we don't see her for another 6 months, then what are we doing? Like
Mhm.
it's kind of like it's gonna be great for her reel, but then there's no consistency in it. So I am curious as to what that means, because I think there's different tiers, there's different levels. So like you might be brought on as let's say for Viva Van, she's a per appearance type situation, whereas Alex might be on a different tier where
Mhm.
she's kind of semi signed, like, okay, no matter what, you'll get paid and stuff like that. So, obviously we're not privy to any of the contracts, but yeah, I'm definitely sure there's different variations for different people, but her getting that pin, or it could be maybe they had to wrap the match up and she was in the ring and she got the pin.
Well, it was a pretty lengthy match, and I mean, how she won made sense. So it didn't feel abrupt. And who knows, maybe this is their way of introducing Alex Windsor to this, Ring of Honor AEW universe.
Hmm.
And you do so by her getting a win like this, which I'm not mad at. Again, we mentioned Viva Van and several others who have great a great resume outside of Ring of Honor. And so when they come in, it seems crazy. We saw this a couple of weeks ago with Allison Kay, a 20-year veteran who has won championships everywhere, who isn't necessarily treated that way. So
Hmm.
if anything, this might be a good thing, and say perhaps they might be listening to our show, because we've talked about people like Alex Windsor being treated the way she actually was treated last night, which
Hmm.
is spoken of highly, getting the opportunity to be in a marquee match and getting a win, and I think moments like this become important to keep your show unpredictable. It shouldn't be where we look and go, oh, we can figure out who's going to win this one and who's going to win that one. Getting
Right.
pleasantly surprised is a major thing in pro wrestling. And it was good to see this happen last night. And we'll certainly see where Alex Windsor goes in a very stacked women's division in Ring of Honor, which,
Mhm.
going to something we mentioned earlier, is all the more reason why I think we're going to need to kind of turn the light up on both Queen Aminata and on Red Velvet, because if you're bringing all of these people in, somebody at some point needs to get a shot at these championships.
Right.
And if we're waiting 3 months for one person to get a shot, what do we do with all of these talented women in the pipeline? I mean, this is 6 women in front of us now. We're not even talking about Taya Valkyrie, Queen Aminata, Red Velvet, Viva Van. Like, we can go through the list of these incredible women who are on this roster. So it's interesting to watch, but congratulations to Marina Shafir Diamante and Alex Windsor, who get the win here. Now, speaking of women, in the women's division, we get Trisha Dora, who is the 3rd member of the infantry, battling the debuting Harley Cameron. Harley Cameron represents the Outcasts from AEW. We've seen Zach Knight, who is the brother of Saraya, on Ring of Honor several times. This is Harley's debut, going up against Trisha Dora. What were your thoughts on this match?
I mean, Trisha's amazing. It was a great match, and I'm happy to see, because correct me if I'm wrong, we haven't seen Trish in action in a minute,
Correct.
as far as in the ring. So I'm happy to see her in the ring again. To perspective, great wrestling, but then where are we going with it? Because almost every woman, like, you're looking at Taya, Diamante, Leela Hirsch, Lady Frost, like Abaddon, Trisha Dora, like every woman has so many great qualities, and having matches like this, it's great, and not everybody has to be a champion. I think we had talked about that at NXT, but for me, like, I feel like every person or every wrestler or every woman in particular is deserving of a storyline. Like, this was my stint at it. I'm going to talk about Trisha Dora's stint at ROH. I want to reference it as far as her wrestling, not, as part of an infantry, because that's what, you'll mention first. Like, this is what she did. And, kind of not being able to do that, to me, is more frustrating. Again, we don't know what the fake TK's game plan is, but it's just kind of like, she's a great wrestler. Now let's put her in a storyline.
Yeah, what's been frustrating when it comes to a Trish Adora, and it's so funny that this happened on the back of us talking about Alex Windsor. Trish Adora, the first ever Pan-African World Diaspora champion, held that title for a very long time, something close to 1,500 days. She did that. They talk often about her being, the first woman in the New Japan dojo over in LA. Like, she's done all of these things, but and she was in the original Ring of Honor, highly touted, came very, very close to becoming the women's champion before the AEW buyout. Since then, it's been a long time since we've seen Trish Adora get a win. And to have her as part of the infantry, where the guys in the infantry have really stepped up and have really been presented in such a strong way, it just feels unfortunate that Trish Adora is not getting the kind of shine that she should be getting. Certainly more experience than Harley Cameron, no knock to Harley Cameron, but it feels like on paper, Trish Adora should have came away with this win and should have her name in the conversation, whether it's for the women's TV title or the women's world championship. Instead, it's not exactly working that way, and that's just a little concerning to me.
Totally agree.
So that,
I can't even...
Yeah. So then we go to the main event, which is a proving ground match. The second one, we mentioned that this would be a match with bookends for proving ground matches. The Undisputed Kingdom battle Shea Cabrera and Bad Dude Tito. Now, Bad Dude Tito and Shea Cabrera have actually been a tag team for about 11 to 12 years. Bad Dude Tito has done quite a bit of time over in New Japan Pro Wrestling. He teams up with Zack Sabre Jr. and several others as part of TMDK. So here it is when we're looking at the Undisputed Kingdom. It seems like on paper, we've got a tag team that could legitimately get a win here over the Undisputed Kingdom. Now, I don't know if by virtue of them being part of New Japan Pro Wrestling, if that kind of gives the sign that they're not going to win based on what we've seen with the partnership in AEW and New Japan. But this was a very entertaining tag match. Oh, and yeah, we got a guest commentator here. And for all of the buildup that was made for the guest commentator, and they mentioned Montreal, I'm thinking, okay, are we going to have a Hart in here? Like, who's going to be the commentator? And it ends up being Matt Menard, which I was just like, I mean, okay, it might have been me. Maybe I thought too highly of it, but we don't get guest commentary on Ring of Honor very much. Matt Menard was not the name I saw happening, though in terms of a story, I understand the story involving him and Undisputed Kingdom. What were your thoughts on this overall?
I mean, it's like who would be a good example? It's like we do WWT live and we're like, we have a special guest. You guys are gonna be so excited, and it's Kane. No shade to Kane,
right? But he's a regular. Yeah,
he's a regular, right? So it's just kind of, you know what you're getting. So I you know. See, now you have me conscious about my analogy. So I'm gonna
no, please.
Because actually, I think
that was a really good analogy.
Well, no, I had another one, and it's definitely not even PC, so it's too early in the morning.
Didn't stop you the other day, though.
So yeah, it's. I mean, you have to try, I guess. You know, yeah, you put the excitement out there, and some people might bite, and some people are like, oh, this is it. And I think that's, you know, some people might have been excited. It just wasn't us.
Yeah, there you go. It wasn't us. And again, the way it was presented, it was just kind of like, oh, wow, you know, you want to stay to the end of this. Almost like, you know, those Instagram reels where they say, watch to the end, and you're expecting something significant to happen, and it just kind of fades off. And it's like, wait, what is this? Either way, a tough challenge, I think, for Undisputed Kingdom. And they did mention, of course, that the Undisputed Kingdom had lost the Proving Ground match. So they tried to set the groundwork for potentially another loss for Undisputed Kingdom, since that loss happened about 2 months or so ago. But that wasn't the case at all this time around. A big win for the Undisputed Kingdom. And unlike what we can tell with the World Television Championship and the World Championship on the women's side, it doesn't seem all that clear who the next competitor or contender is for the Ring of Honor World Tag Team Championship. We'll have to wait to find out. But a big win here for the Undisputed Kingdom. And that's a look at Ring of Honor. We're going to take a quick break and come back and talk about all things TNA Impact as TNA is preparing for the Against All Odds pay-per-view. Right now, though, go get some merch.
Hey, yo, you. Yeah, you that's watching this. You sitting on the couch staring at the screen not knowing what you want to do like this is an online college. Are you tired of wearing shirts that make you look like an extra stuck in catering? Do you want to step your wrestling swag game up to the next level? Then Women's Wrestling Talk has got you covered. Like literally. Are you for life in pink or black and white? Or maybe you're the EST and people need to respect you accordingly. Want to put some pride in your stride and show off the muscle in your hustle? Then make sure you check out the WWT store. Not now, but right now. Alright? What you waiting for? Head to wwtalkpodstore.com and don't make me fight you. Shit.
So we are going to get into all things Impact right now. Professor had to take a little bit of a break, but it was an amazing show nonetheless. We also want to give a little bit of a shout out to our new sponsor. I don't know if he even has the graphic for this. All Caribbean Wrestling. You definitely want to check out all their stuff. They're the official partner for Women's Wrestling Talk. So they have 2 big matches coming up, one in the Bahamas. Professor always has the dates for this. I should have had the dates. One in the Bahamas that's going to be coming up at the end of June, and one in Jamaica. So you definitely want to check out allcaribbeanwrestling.com. Definitely check out their social media as well. So we're going to get a little bit into it. I kind of feel like what I really wanted to talk about was, hold on, let me find the graphic for y'all. Oh, there he is. I was gonna go off the reins and talk about this first because
oh Lord, you wanted to go there first? Okay,
I want to go there first because it was great. I loved it.
Yeah, so TNA Impact last night, of course, it is the final show before the Against All Odds pay-per-view, which happens tonight. And we knew coming into this episode that the system was invited to the Hardy compound. And you just have to know, if you've watched TNA for any length of time, an invite to the Hardy compound does not go well for anyone not named Hardy. And so this was interesting, of course, leading into this this title match that's supposed to happen tonight between Matt Hardy and Moose. And there was a lot that happened in the Hardy compound. An awful lot. I almost feel like, with the QR codes, we have to decode some of what happened. And yeah, a lot of my notes for what happened last night are surrounded by this, because an awful lot happened. So let me ask you, what were your thoughts on this visit to the Hardy compound, and what kind of really stuck out to you?
First off, on a real life level, I'm not going to like nobody's house. Like, you invited me. No, thanks. Thanks for the invite. I'm not coming. Like, you I feel like a friend of a friend who would tell you, yeah, don't go. So it's kind of funny, obviously in my, like, I am that person. That's why I don't go to movie theaters. I am that person who talks to the screens. Like, why you do that? Where they do that at? They invite you to your house. You have an upcoming match, but like, what's happening here? So on the realistic level, those are the monologues that I have in my head. But for the sake of television and wrestling, it was great. It was great to have his kids involved. It's great to have his wife involved. It was just, I like moments like this because it takes away from, I guess, the people like me who are always like, oh, where's these storylines? Or, people who just want all wrestling. Sometimes, just taking it and having, and I often say this, it was MJF who talked about it in one of the media conferences after a pay-per-view. I think it was the one in LA in the fall of last year, where it's just like there's different wrestling for different folks. And that's the beautiful thing about wrestling. You can have like the people who are really, they want to see the technical wrestling and all that other stuff. And the people who want to see the storylines, and the people who want to see the glitz and gun, and the people who want to see stuff like this. And this was, it was a nice break to see that, and especially when you involve the kids, like, you have Moose being Moose yelling at somebody in their own house.
Right. Very Moose.
Yeah,
very
it
Moose.
was like, okay, this is what we doing. All right, cool. So it's entertaining, all entertaining.
And I think this is one of the strengths of TNA. I think people forget that TNA really introduced us to these movie cinematic kinds of things. Now, with that said, I do have to go back, and if I'm going to mention that, I have to honor Lucha Underground, who really predated TNA with these cinematic kinds of presentations, but they were primarily done as small story bits, never as full matches. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So with that, I mean, there were certainly some fight scenes that were done that way in Lucha, but nobody really did it to the level that Matt Hardy and TNA did. And when we start thinking about the contributions of TNA to pro wrestling, obviously what they did in the women's division is massive, but what they have done with this here is incredible. And it's interesting because even though WWE tried to do that when the Hardys came through, and they tried to do that with the Wyatts, this is one of those things that TNA actually has over WWE. Nobody's been able to do the cinematic presentation like this. And what's so interesting is it's one of those things that's so outlandish that you just go, yeah, this totally is happening. Like, you're not sitting up here thinking, well, how did they shoot this? And how did they do that? And what I like about it is it kind of trumps what all of the marks and smart fans like to do, where they like to analyze and break everything down. Now you have to use your power of analysis for something else, which I think is cool. And so, some of the interesting things that came out of this was, again, I love the random things that Matt Hardy says. He tells Moose in terms of, why did you come through the back door and don't take another step? Moose is just like, why? I'm not scared of you. And most people would say, because it's booby trapped. No. Matt Hardy says, because it's a trap of booby, which I'm just like, that's hilarious on so many levels. And I'm going to move before HR shows up. So yeah, it was a cool move for Matt Hardy. And then I also thought it was cool. Again, Brian Myers gets kind of mesmerized by these action figures of the Hardys, and it's kind of taking him to a different place. And then you're hearing all of these references to his career all mentioned in this moment, from him being a part once an edgehead to, his 273 match losing streak in Impact. And then by the end of it, he's getting speared by the skeleton of Edge, which I just think is it's this kind of cerebral activity that makes these kinds of moments really, really fun to watch. It's also wild to think that when they first started doing this, it was 2016, 2017, maybe even 2018. At that time, Matt Hardy didn't have all of these children. He had one. And so now seeing all of his kids, it's crazy. I had to write it down to try to keep track of all of them.
Yeah, because I think it was it Wolfgang?
Yes, that's one of the newer kids.
Okay. And then baby Goth. And it's like, I know baby because of his wife, and they've been posting the baby a lot. But yeah, when I saw all those kids, I'm like, where are they at? Like, I don't.
Yeah.
When did you have time to do that? But you forget, I think the pandemic really kind of shortened and also elongated time, because it's the pandemic either added 10 years or it felt like 6 months ago. One of those things. And then it's literally 4 years ago, which is crazy. So I mean, yeah, like you're forgetting all those, I guess. Yeah, I mean, he was busy.
Yeah, well,
that's the trap of booby, literally and figuratively.
And see. That's what I was just like. I'm just gonna keep plowing along here. But, when this thing first started, it was all about King Maxwell. He was the child. And now you've got, I was just like, man, they've been working, because I don't remember all these babies. So, you had that, you had the return of the Lake of Reincarnation, which I just thought was hilarious. Moose goes in there, and the whole Lake of Reincarnation, when you come out, you end up being something that either you were or a great version of yourself. And this took Moose back to being a football player, and they had the NFL theme playing behind it. Like, it was just, it's these kinds of brilliant moments that I think are awesome, that TNA does very, very well. And that, of course, will lead into a title match tonight at Against All Odds between Matt Hardy and Moose, which I think will be downright amazing. So again, great work there for TNA Impact. And so now getting to some of these matches, it kicked off with Mike Santana against Zachary Wentz. Again, this is the night before Against All Odds, so there are multiple stories here. Both of these men will be facing each other in a tag team match at Against All Odds, as the Rascals will take on Mike Santana and Steve Macklin. And this match was a great match to start things out. Again, a bit of a preview for what we can expect tonight at Against All Odds. Santana gets the win, but not without a degree of controversy and interference. What did you think about this one?
I mean, it's a great, I remember when it was out in Vegas where Santana came back. And so again, this is great to be a part of this, and then also being part of the pay-per-views. And it's a good lead up. Like, it's really interesting how TNA does their stuff, where they have the show on Thursday, and then it leads up to the pay-per-view. Because I feel like it feels like they already had a pay-per. They have pay-per-views. I think they have pay-per-views
seemingly every month.
Yeah. So which kind of, I think, and this is not just TNA. I think it's also, you know, WWE and AEW. It almost takes away the excitement of it, because it's like, if you miss this pay-per-view, then they're going to do a recap anyway, and then there's going to be another pay-per-view next month. So it kind of takes away its luster a little bit. It's like seeing like the hot guy at the gym, but then you see him every day, and then he just becomes just a guy at the gym. So it's like, damn, when am I gonna see him? Then you see him like every couple of weeks. I'm like, man, he's really hot. And then you see him every day. It's like, oh no, he's just the guy.
There's a lot to unpack with that, because if I see somebody beautiful, I want to see them regularly, not like,
They
you
just
know,
become
every
normal
2
now.
or 3 weeks. I'm gonna leave that alone. There's something I want to say. I'm gonna leave it alone. Yeah. Wow.
You're just now a guy at the gym who's trying to do the same thing I'm doing. I'm trying to work out, stay in shape.
Wow.
You're trying to work out, stay in shape. It's like you're no longer this Adonis that's been carved out of stone. Like you're a work in progress, just like me. So now you're just a guy.
So you're not for long-term relationships, are you?
Oh, I love long-term relationships.
But no, you like long-distance relationships, not long-term.
Why are you telling my business?
Because you just said that. You said if you see the man once every 2 to 3 weeks, I'm going, yeah, so you wouldn't want to see somebody every day.
I mean, I'm also a proponent of us having different houses on the same block.
This is what I'm saying. Long distance relationship.
I mean, sometimes you need some time by yourself to, keep the passion alive and do your own thing and all that stuff. Like, why not? Back in the day, they had separate beds.
TK is 1 in a million, I promise you. So Mike Santana gets the win, leading into this tag team match, which we will go over before the show wraps up. Then we get into a special sit-down interview involving Tom Hannafin and the X Division champion, Mustafa Ali, leading up to, again, his match against Trent Seven, and this whole idea that he could be ducking Speedball Mike Bailey, and then all of a sudden, Campaign Singh comes in, interrupts this. I thought it was just brilliantly done. Again, this whole politician thing that Mustafa Ali is on, especially during an election year, I think it works. It's pretty brave. What are your thoughts?
I mean, yeah, I am him, and I know we're going to get to AJ as well. The folks who lead WWE, there's like different trajectories. You have the people who leave and they're on the indie scene, but it's not as much of a splash. Like they're there because they're a former WWE superstar, right? Then you have people who like AJ and Mustafa Ali, who like they create a whole another entity, and you almost forget about the past life of WWE. And this is what he's done. It's just kind of like, oh yeah, like he was with WWE, but what he's doing right now, brilliant.
Yeah, it's absolutely brilliant. And you're right. When you do this right, you can create the kind of career that makes you not have to lead with the line of former WWE superstar. And I think that's what we're seeing with Mustafa Ali and several others. So this, again, is leading to his match with Trent Seven tonight for the X Division Championship. Now, when I see certain things, they do make me think of you, believe it or not. And Marty Bell versus Masha Slamovich made me think of you because of the way that the Hex is being presented in Impact. This is leading to a tag team title match, which we found out about later on, between these two teams, Masha Slamovich and Alicia Edwards, defending against the Hex. So again, very similar format to what we saw in the first match. Interestingly enough, though, Marty Bell gets the win over Masha Slamovich, which is what helps lead to the Hex getting a tag title match tonight against the Knockouts Tag Team Champions. What were your thoughts on this match and how the Hex is being presented in Impact?
Again, it goes to, and this is total guesstimation, so don't quote me on any of this. It goes to different tier systems, I think. If you have different paying systems, and also your longevity in the business, and then also the fact that both Marty Bell and Allison Kay have been with TNA. TNA is kind of like almost like you can always go home. That's what TNA feels like. Like you can go somewhere else, but you always have a home in TNA. So to me, them becoming tag team champions goes against my theory, but it also it makes sense in my head because of their longevity and their partnership with TNA over the last decade plus. So, and who doesn't want to see that Hex? Have you seen these ladies in swimsuits and on their Twitch? Oh my God. So like who doesn't want to see them champions?
Well, I guess the better question is who wants to see them every day? But that's another question for another discussion,
Touche.
But I love, and again, I think this hits so hard. Of course, it's the Thursday Roundup, and we talk Ring of Honor and TNA, and seeing both of these women recently on Ring of Honor and how they were presented just a few weeks ago versus how they're presented in Impact, that speaks volumes. And it's very clear that there is buy-in and involvement with Impact for the Hex. And now the Hex have the opportunity to become tag team champions, which I think, again, a win over Masha Slamovich is a big deal. And so if they're getting that win last night, there's a real opportunity for them to be able to pull things off. And I'm really excited about that. And again, we'll get into that a little bit later, but a big win for Marty Bell. So this is where things get interesting. So backstage, Steph DeLander has this black rose. She's approached by Zaya Brookside to say, hey, have you given any thought to what you're going to do with PCO? She says, I'll wait until the pay-per-view and give him my answer. Gets interrupted by First Class. First Class then comes out for an onstage interview. The lights go out. PCO shows up. And now he's fighting these guys for the black rose that AJ Francis stole. What's happening in this? I can't even call it a love triangle because I don't know what to call it. But what do you think?
I mean, you guys have to watch. Faye Jackson did, and this is definitely like HR non-compliance. I won't quote it all, but Faye Jackson during I think WrestleMania did interviews and asked men questions, and she interviewed AJ and he answered, and because of that answer, what you just says, like I don't know what to expect, aligns with AJ Francis. And you guys will have to find all those Easter eggs because I'm not about to go into all of that. But yeah. So, hey.
Go
if you like it, I love it.
Listen. And that's why he's the digital media champion. And we'll see what happens. But that was a very entertaining segment. And again, I think TNA does a great job of giving you palate cleansers where we're not just getting, 6 or 7 back-to-back matches. We're getting stories. We're getting stories created. All kinds of things that are happening. And so very, very cool moment. Then that leads us to our next match, which sees Tasha Steelz taking on Dani Luna. Really excited about this. Dani Luna, of course, part of the group Spitfire. And the whole idea is to try to get them back into tag team title contention with Luna fighting a former Knockouts tag champion and a former Knockouts world champion in Tasha Steelz. Very entertaining match. Dani Luna gets the win. Does that feel like an upset to you? Because it certainly felt like an upset to me.
It did. And I also, if I can just throw out story ideas, and I don't know if this could work due to contracts and logistics. And I know this is going to happen at Ashe Wrestling. However, Fire and Flava, like, can we have a forbidden door where Kiera Hogan comes back and they are tag team champs at TNA? Like, why not? I mean,
that forbidden door conversation, we're going to talk about that because it does end up coming back up in the show a little bit later, and there was just some interesting things with that for sure. But yeah, Tasha Steelz losing to Dani Luna, definitely one of the biggest wins of Dani Luna's career for sure, over a former Knockouts Women champion, world champion. Exciting match for sure. Now, this was one of the most interesting parts of the night. We get Joe Hendry backstage, and he's telling us that, you know what, he got beat last week by the system, and he needs some help, and so he's brought in some additional help. And who shows up but Ace Steel? Everybody remembers Ace Steel from the infamous, media scrum, all of the names that they've given it, where Ace Steel ultimately was released from AEW for his participation in that. And we've not seen him anywhere in the wrestling world until this moment where, he referenced being able to help get people to become the best in the world. And now he's beside Joe Hendry, gets interrupted by Frankie Kazarian. This will lead to a match between those two tonight at Against All Odds. But Ace Steel and Joe Hendry, what did you think of this pairing? Did you see this coming?
I mean, no, it's going back. I mean, that's the great thing about TNA and why it folks who are watching us don't necessarily watch it consistently, why you should watch it consistently, because it does expand your mind, meaning that they do a lot of things that you don't necessarily expect. And I think it's because they don't, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like they don't have as many bosses to get the checklist run by, if that makes sense. Sure. Whereas WWE, they have all of WWE, all of TKO, all of Endeavor. That's a lot of bosses. And whereas with TNA, there's a little bit more freedom, and also because they're not necessarily on that under that microscope like WWE is, you can do stuff like this and say, I don't know what's happening here, but I'm here for this. I'm here for this wave. I'm here for this ride. So I have no idea what to expect, and it's kind of a good thing because and another thing about TNA is they don't typically miss in their storylines. There's always kind of a reason with it. So it's like, I don't know what's going to happen in the end. It's just like seeing that hot guy in the gym. And now, all of a sudden you guys are dating. It's like, I don't know what's going to happen, but I'm going to enjoy this ride, literally and figuratively.
I think we need to move these shows 12 hours later. Yeah, wow. Okay. The other thought that ran through my mind immediately when I saw Ace Steel on this television screen was, oh my God, this partnership. Could we see Ace Steel somehow cross the burning sands and reunite with CM Punk? Maybe way down the road, but very, very interesting moment. Looking forward to this. Moving right along. So Ash by Elegance is here, and this was a great time where there was talk about all that she did in her involvement in NXT's Battleground, which again, I just think it is so cool to see how those things are being covered, of course, by TNA. Ash by Elegance ends up in a match against someone who I'm a big fan of, Jada Stone. Really excited to see her on TNA. She ended up on another TNA program called Explosion the week before in a tag team match where she was on the winning side of that. So that makes this match very interesting because she already has a win under her TNA belt. And now how would she do in this match against Ash by Elegance? I just want to take a moment and shout out the personal concierge who, you're special when you don't have a name. Your name is your title, the personal concierge. And he is hella annoying but all kinds of fun. And I'm really enjoying seeing him on our TV screen. What did you think of this match between Ash by Elegance and Jada Stone?
I mean, Jada Stone, oh my God, it's gonna be interesting where we're gonna sit. We've seen her, but it's gonna be interesting where we're going to see her in the next 2 or 3 years. I mean, you're seeing her, training with Natalia. You're seeing Bailey shouting her out. Like you're seeing she's putting in the work, and I'm really excited. It's kind of almost like I almost like thinking back to when I saw Bianca at CrossFit, and then I saw her get signed to WWE. I was instantly, because I knew what I saw in this area. I knew that I'm gonna see something amazing. And so when you see stuff like that, you almost feel like you discovered them. Don't come at me. I just am really excited to see, where we're gonna see it, because there's the sky's the limit for her. And that, and that's the great thing about the Forbidden Door, and particularly like she's working it so much that you're seeing her in different places, and she's getting those reps in, but she's also establishing her brand, which is a good thing.
Absolutely. Jada Stone, who I've had the chance to work with, whether in Battle Slam or Ashe or All Caribbean, she has been in a number of amazing places. And it is exciting to see what the future holds for Jada Stone. She's definitely a name I think you guys are going to be talking about for a long time to come. Currently doing work as well in OVW and is part of the New Japan Dojo. So again, just all of these things working together, as you mentioned, working with Natalia. Yeah, this is a very special time for Jada Stone. Very competitive match. Ash by Elegance gets the win, but I think we'll be seeing a lot more of Jada Stone. Someone's going to sign her sooner than later. I have no doubt about that. And she's only 20 years old. So this is really awesome.
Crazy.
From there, we get into Jordynne Grace, and we finally get to hear from Jordynne Grace and her thoughts over the weekend in terms of what happened at NXT Battleground, stating that she was disappointed, but she blames herself because she should have been prepared for Ash by Elegance interfering and involving herself in this moment. She's continuing with her open challenge that's scheduled for tonight, and she called out a number of promotions. WWE was mentioned, MLW, the NWA. Like, she went down the line and said everybody except AEW.
Get this work.
Yeah, she said everybody but AEW. And we'll probably dig into this some more tonight on WWT Live. But who do you think comes to answer the challenge tonight of Jordynne Grace?
It'd be nice. Oh my gosh, I'm seeing her face, and she was actually on the show. Let me see if I can find her name. She is the champ over at, and I don't think Jordan said her name, Tiffany. She's the champ.
Tiffany Nieves?
Yes. I mean, I don't. There's so many women. There's so many women. And it's so funny that she didn't mention AEW, because as we're talking about ROH, there's so many. The locker room for women in ROH is crazy. So there's so many women, which is an amazing thing to see across the board on on all these platforms. However, I feel like, kind of going back to storyline, given the fact that she had this huge, amazing crossover at NXT, it'd only be fitting to have somebody from NXT pull up to this pay-per-view. Like it only makes sense. And I think there was an interview that Natalia did over maybe the last year or so, where she was talking about like the Forbidden Door and working with NXT, but also working with, other indie talent, which she does as far as training wise. So even though she wasn't necessarily in the picture when Jordynne was there, I mean, obviously Roxanne would be a great bet. Like, you came to my house and tried to disrespect me, and I took that, and I'm now going to come. Now I'm going to double down and disrespect you in your house. I mean, that would be a great thing. So I don't know. I think if I were just to put a name on it, I would want to see Jordynne Grace. Jordynne Grace would be a good bet. I mean, obviously we haven't seen
Jordan.
Trinity.
Wait,
Sorry, not
you
Jordan
said
Grace.
Jordan Grace?
Roxanne.
Oh, okay.
Um,
Okay. I was like,
or
she's gonna challenge
Trin.
herself.
Yeah, I mean, she's just that good. Challenge herself in the mirror.
Yeah.
Or Trin would be a good one, but I mean, I don't see a storyline with that. But I think Roxanne might be a really good play. I mean, just for the sake of, you know, considering said, since he's part of the Vice family, Lola Vice just pulling up. That would be interesting. But I think anybody from if we were to narrow it down, I think anybody from the NXT roster would be a good bet.
Yeah, I would definitely lean toward the NXT roster. And even if it's not Roxanne, anyone from the NXT roster, that story is the story. You know, I think we should also consider that the WWE right now is in Scotland for their pay-per-view tomorrow night and SmackDown tonight. So there are certain names that automatically won't be on this list, but there are still enough names that likely didn't make the trip and that are in NXT that are still stateside. So WWE is certainly not ruled out of this possibility. And so I think it'll be interesting to see who comes through. Yes.
Chelsea Green.
No, because she's
Not
with
at the,
Piper.
not at the moment, but if this door stays open, I want to see that crossover.
That could be interesting, you know, seeing some former TNA talents who are now in WWE. That would be interesting. I think the sky is the limit for what we could see with this. Moving forward, the main event was ABC taking on Nick and Ryan Nemeth, and it's so interesting that these two blood brothers have never teamed before inside of a wrestling ring until last night. And what a match to have against the former two-time tag team champions, ABC. What did you think of this match?
I mean, shout out to the commentators as far as telling the story. But yeah, that's amazing to be. That's the great thing with being in the entertainment business. There's certain things that you're able to document that there'd be no other way to that you would have this.
Right.
You know, I referenced like, you know, Total Divas and watching Natalia with her father. So stuff like this, being able to wrestle with your brother, is a great thing. It was a great match. Both teams did amazing well. I do like how Nick has another, you know, former superstar. I don't think he can necessarily get away from the WWE because he's been with it for so long, but how he is kind of like, it's almost the equivalent of a really good actor in a movie. It's like, you know, that's let's say, you know, that's Denzel, but now he's playing Denzel in this movie, and you're okay with that. It's still a great movie, and that's kind of what he's been doing. He's successful in doing that.
Yeah, you know, his career obviously spent so much time as Dolph. It's impossible for him to step away from that or for people to forget that. But yeah, what a marquee tag team match to wrap things up. Nick and Ryan Nemeth, they win the match and head on to a tag team title match. And of course, we've been alluding to the fact that tonight is against all odds. It is indeed sold out, which is a huge moment there for TNA. So congratulations to TNA and their product continuing to do well. They're in Chicago tonight. And just a run through of the card, you've got the World Championship, Moose versus Matt Hardy. And after what happened last night, this should be a very intriguing match. We'll also see the System take on Nick and Ryan Nemeth in defense of the TNA World Tag Team Championships. The X Division titles on the line as Mustafa Ali takes on Trent Seven. We've got the open challenge for Jordan Grace's Knockout World Championship. No telling who could walk through that door, but it should be amazing. Then from there, Mike Santana and Steve Macklin take on the Rascals, which should be a great tag match. Santana and Macklin have said it's one and done. This is the only time they're teaming, or so we think. We'll see how everything goes tonight. How many other people have said one and done, and then, you know, they end up becoming tag team champions? So there is that. I'm sure I was going to say, I knew TK had another reference. I was trying to speed past it, but it is what it is. We know who isn't going to, well, no, you would probably be one and done because you don't want to see them again unless it's another 6 or 7 months away. Joe Hendry will be backed by a steel in Chicago against Frankie Kazarian, as if Joe Hendry needed any other help in terms of being a fan favorite. A steel in Chicago, you know how that's going to go down. In the pre-show, we'll see Sami Callihan taking on Jonathan Gresham, which I think is an amazing match. And I forgot this one slide, but also in the pre-show will be the Knockouts Tag Team title match between the Hex and Masha Slamovich and Alicia Edwards. Again, all of that goes down tonight on TNA Plus, beginning at 7:30 p.m. Eastern for the pre-show. And then, of course, the main show kicks off at 8 p.m. So a lot of wrestling happening tonight. You've got TNA, you've got SmackDown tomorrow, you've got Clash at the Castle, a big wrestling weekend. And given all that TNA and WWE are doing, seems like they both are can't miss. So definitely feel free to check that out. All right, that's going to do it for our Thursday night roundup. I hope you guys are enjoying our look at Ring of Honor and TNA. You guys can catch me at Bonnerfied across all of the socials. My commentary work is on IWTV. You can also check it out on YouTube. And my work with Ashe Wrestling. Yes, you guys just heard the little professor just randomly screaming because that's what he likes to do. Next week, we'll be gearing up for Ashe Wrestling, which is going to be amazing. And then after that, our great work with All Caribbean Wrestling. So make sure you're following us. And of course, we'll be back here tonight. At least I think I'm here tonight for WWT Live at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific. Of course, I lean to, well, maybe I shouldn't come back tonight because I don't want TK to get tired of me. You know how that goes.
Wow, good segue.
So I'll maybe I'll take the night off. So she'll want to see me whenever it is I come back.
Oh my gosh.
And that probably explains why we hadn't seen TK for weeks. She didn't want us to get tired of her. So there it is, in the hands of the house that TK built.
Oh my gosh. Well, also don't forget to check out, I can't remember if you said it, our SmackDown watch along with Honey. We also will be having a Clash at the Castle post show with Will. So yeah, a lot of things happening. So definitely check that out. Wait, did you tell everybody where they can find you?
Yes, at Bonnerfied. You can find me there on all of the social spaces.
And yeah, so you can find me everywhere at TK Trinidad, and you can find Women's Wrestling Talk. Do you have the outro lined up? Or
I do.
I got you. You can find everything at Women's Wrestling Talk. Other than that, thank you guys so much for watching Women's Wrestling Talk, the #1 women's wrestling show on the planet. Ciao for now.
Thanks for joining WWT. Don't forget to like us on all social media platforms at wwtalkpod. Like and subscribe on all video and audio platforms like yesterday, my G. And check out our website at wwtalkpod.com. Thanks for watching.